On October 17th, 2023, the Brightmoor family's world was turned upside down when, at the age of just 44, a tumour was found in Angela's brain. 1 month later, they were introduced to the world that is hospice. This is Angela's story. Walking the final path together, a Hospice West Auckland podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 9. In the previous episode, we spoke with Dr. Celia and we said our goodbyes to Angela. Today we are joined by Amy, who's one of our counsellors here. Welcome, Amy. Thanks for joining us.
Kia ora, Kelly.
Amy, talk to us about what your role is here at Hospice West Auckland.
So I'm on the social care team and I'm one of the counsellors here. I work equally with patients and people who are grieving and their family. If needed, we run groups here, so facilitate bereavement groups and patient groups.
And Aron, you've been supported by Amy through this journey of yours.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How did you guys first get connected?
I think it was probably, so Angela passed away in January. I think by kind of March, I was kind of like, oh, this isn't going great. I kind of didn't really know what was going on. Things kind of didn't really make sense, all of that kind of thing. And, was I grieving in the right way? Was I looking after the kids in the right way? I had a really big fear, that now that Angela wasn't here, was I the right person to look after the kids and all of that kind of stuff. So obviously through our initial conversations with hospice, I knew that, that support was ongoing for not just me, but the kids and stuff like that. And so, I just reached out to hospice and I was like, hey, I kind of need something here. So what can we do? Yeah.
And so it's a couple of months, maybe 1 or 2 months after you've said your goodbyes to Angela.
Yeah.
Is that fairly normal, Amy, in your experience, that sometimes it's not until a little bit later that people are reaching out for support?
Yeah, I think it varies. Sometimes people engage in the support before their person has passed away, and sometimes it's after. Usually, we would do a follow-up phone call and touch base. But, there's that idea that to let those natural networks and, support be with the person first, that we don't need to jump in there. Somewhat common to reach out after a little while. I think that you were maybe seeing someone.
I'd kind of been seeing someone just through work as well, but kind of wanted something a bit more specific to what was happening. So obviously when I reached out, but I think I've touched before about how everyone would say when we were going through all of this, you got to look after yourself, and I would be like, well, I've got plenty of time for that after, and so I think. I think once she was gone, and that was that moment that was like, whoa, actually this is now a thing, and I haven't really had time to think about what this is going to be like after, because I was so in the moment. So there's like this big wave of like, oh, this is just you by yourself now.
Talk to me about, Aron, in the previous episode we had the funeral, where you said your goodbyes to Angela. We talked about what that process was like for you, and then Amy, you've touched on that kind of bridge between all the natural support, family, friends who are around you, because it's really in the moment for them. What was that experience like for you? Because I imagine you're grieving, you're processing what's going on, but you've also got family, friends around you going through similar things.
Yeah, like we talked about, the amazing support that we had, when Angela was sick, when there was just always people in our house and stuff like that. And kind of, I guess just occurs naturally from kind of the day after the funeral onwards, that just gradually gets less and less, as people kind of, as everyone else kind of returns to normal life, and I think like that, for me, like that happened quite quickly. Try not to take it personally, but you kind of just this mixed bag of emotions, right? And so you go from having like all of these people come and make dinner and do whatever they can to help, which is great, but then eventually they do have to return to their normal lives, and you're kind of left picking up the pieces because your normal life doesn't exist anymore, and so I remember like all of a sudden, like it happened near the end of the school holidays, and now I've got that admin to deal with, and there's not two of us, doing that. And like Angela and I would kind of split the Christmas holidays. So I would do the first 3 weeks and she would do the second 3 weeks, and, to get the kids through. And then she would do the uniform and the stationery and stuff like that as kids went back to school. And now it was like, oh no, like that I've got to do that now. And then, but then also just the normal things, and I remember like, and it still is a little bit now, like just cooking dinner was a really big trigger for me. And I would, because of Angela's working hours, I would normally cook dinner. She would kind of get everyone ready in the morning, and I would do the dinner and stuff at night. And for a long time, that was really triggering, because I would go to cook dinner and my brain would instantly go, right, well, it's 5:30 or 6 o'clock or whatever, she's going to be home soon. And they'd be like, no, she's not coming home. And so that was really, really hard, to the point where I was really, really lucky that my son Maddie just picked up on that I just couldn't do it, I just couldn't function in that way. And so he would just appear at 6 o'clock and he would start making dinner, and he was 16, 17 at the time, and I didn't ask him to do that. I didn't tell him or anything like that. He just picked up on it and was like, this is what I'm going to do to help Dad. And whether he did it subconsciously or what, I don't know. But he just took over, and he still does it now. It's kind of got a little bit easier, and I do it a lot more now, but he's kind of got into this routine of just doing it. But yeah, initially, like, it was little things like that, but it just quickly disappears. It's a really quick drop off from, kind of all of these people to very quickly, just not many people at all. And that's okay. Like, that's not, they're not being mean or anything like that. And, and you're appreciative of all the support that you got. It's just everyone has to return to their normal life. It's just your life your normal isn't what you're used to.
What's normal now?
Yeah.
So much adjusting.
Yeah.
I remember when you came, it was early days, so it was raw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, like all those just little things, like how am I going to get the kids to school? How am I going to pick the kids up? How does that work with me working and stuff like that? And so you're still trying to process that your person is gone and function, but life, like as much as everyone else's life carries on, your life has to carry on too. And I always say, like, I know that there's lots of people out there, single parents that do that stuff all the time, and and I take my hat off to them, but that wasn't my life, and so it took a whole bunch of adjusting to kind of get that to work. And and I'm still very lucky that there are still have friends and family that are willing to just jump in when they can and when we need and help out. But yeah, it's a really big adjusting period just for the life admin.
So like you said, alongside the emotions of it, you've got this adjustment period where life is moving on, but you're having to figure out how to move on without your soulmate. And part of that comes the relationship and the emotions of it, but also the practicalities when you've got kids as well.
Yeah.
Amy, I think people often think about grief as a process, or, there might be a right or a wrong way to grieve. What's your comments on that?
Yeah, and we've talked about that quite a bit as well. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, it can be validating for a person who's grieving, especially in the early stages of grief, that there are some common experiences, that it can feel really disorientating, that it can feel exhausting, that it can be quite physical.
Yeah.
You could have brain fog. It can be reassuring, perhaps, to know that you're not losing your mind.
Yeah.
So that, but there is, no normal or abnormal grieving.
I imagine not everybody that loses a loved one needs counselling support as well. There are different, we go through grieving, but not everybody needs counselling support.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I guess it can depend on, the supports that they already have in place, or, it can, I'd like to hear your perspective on this too, like what indicated to you that could be helpful, useful. But I think that it can be around, the stage in life as well, and what you're currently faced with, current or past challenges and difficulties, previous losses, trauma. It can do with, your own thinking and core belief, those kind of processes, family of origin stuff. So, lots kind of comes into maybe why someone might reach out.
I think, like, for me, as we established, we've done a podcast of 9 episodes of listening to me talk. Like, that's how I deal with things, right? I need to kind of get things out. So, like, it makes sense for me, and it's, and it's been really, really helpful. It's, but it's, interesting to get your thoughts. But no one's journey is the same, like. There's all of these little things that I do that initially I thought were, my brain would be like, why are you doing that? That's stupid. And so I'd kind of beat myself up about it, be like, that's dumb. Why are you doing that? And you and I would talk about some of those things. And then I would be lucky enough to talk to someone that was going through the same thing, and they'd be like, oh, well, I do this. And I'm like, wait a minute, I do that. Like, okay, and there's like this justification, and that what you're doing is kind of okay because unless you've kind of been through it before, you have no idea. And so this is who I am as a person. I second guess everything that I do. So this just kind of heightened that. So I thought everything I was doing was wrong. Was I grieving enough? Was I grieving too much? The big one that stands out for me and is the chocolate bar in the fridge. And you and I have talked about this at length. There's a block of Whittaker's chocolate in the fridge that somebody, and I don't know who, somebody bought for Angela when she was sick, and it's sat in our fridge. And it's still there, and every time I open the fridge door, I see it. I'm like, there's Angela's chocolate. And it's just a little reminder. And and people, I'd have people say, well, why have you kept that? That seems stupid. And you're like, I don't know. Like it's hers, and funnily enough, I came across something on Instagram where someone had put a photo of their fridge, and it was like, here's the bottle of soda that my dad. That's the last bottle of soda he drank. It's still in the fridge, and he's been gone 3 years, and it's like, oh, okay, well, it's not just me that's, it's not just me that's, that's doing that. And then, like, the other side of it is like Angela's clothes. So Angela's clothes are all in the wardrobe, or they're in her drawers. They're all just where she left them. And, and I've been asked, when am I going to get rid of them? Well, because of who I am, well, I'm not. That's just what's going to happen. But I also know of people that are like, within a week of their person passing away, they're like, the stuff's got to go. It's too much for them, and things like that. And so, like, yeah, there's no right way, right? I couldn't turn around and say, oh, that's terrible that you're getting rid of their stuff already, because that's how they're dealing with it. That's not how I deal with it, but that's okay.
That's what. So lots of talking about helps figure out what the right process is for you. Yeah. Just hearing you talk about the Instagram and books that you've ordered or read, that you've found a lot of support and comfort and normalizing through those kind of resources, which often, we running bereavement groups, you get that. That normalizing of, oh, I do that too, or okay, all right, that's happening to me, that's happening, okay, so can be helpful.
I can imagine it is quite, I'm sitting here listening to you as well, Aron, saying that you question everything and how that would be such a mind game for you. And I do this action, and am I grieving enough? Am I moving on too quickly? Is this the right or wrong way to do something? But is there a right or wrong way? Doesn't sound like there is. It's what you need to do to, to cherish or to go through your grieving process.
And I think, like, and all of the stuff that you get told by family and friends and stuff like that is all well-meaning. No one's saying things to you to be mean or or whatever. But you do get like, people say a lot of things to you that are like, you're like, well, you've not been through this. You don't know what this is like, and and I haven't had too many of them, but I've had a few of like, the pretty standard ones. Oh, she's in a better place. Yeah, that's cool, but I'd rather she was here. Like that stuff's kind of not, those kinds of things aren't helpful. And again, they're well intended, but they're not helpful. And so I place a lot of emphasis on people that have been through this. When they say something to me, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And you do have to do a lot of like, thanks, I'll take that on board kind of situation.
Or just assumptions around timings and how long things take. And
and for a long time, especially in that first year, it was like, oh, the first must be really hard. Well, we're into some seconds now, and they're not any easier. In fact, my experience is that going back to talking about that support and stuff that was there, as the years go on, that gets kind of less and less, and there's kind of this, and again, no one says this, but there's kind of this thing where it's like, okay, well, from January 20th, a year after, that's it. You've got to be better now, and you've got to, and so what I've found is that the second year has been, a lot harder, a lot, I guess, lonelier would be, you kind of, now you are doing this by yourself. And so but it is what it is, right? It's the rest of the world is moving on.
So for somebody like me who is maybe wanting to support you or support somebody that I love that's going through their grief, I know a little bit about maybe what not to say. Do you guys have any tips in terms of what I could say or do to give them comfort, to show them that I care, but also not give you advice, tell you to move on, tell you how to grieve?
Oh, that one.
What
Definitely not.
What brought you comfort, or what was helpful for you? What could be helpful?
I think for me, there's two things. Is you don't have to say anything. And I think that kind of applies to just the world in general, right? If someone has a problem and they're going to talk to you about it, they're not really talking to you about it because they want your advice. They'll if they want it, they'll ask for it. But generally what happens is they'll talk and talk and talk. And by the end of it, they go, actually, I've just figured that out myself and I just needed to vent, right? Yeah. It's kind of the same, like, unless I'm talking to someone that has been through it and I ask for their opinion, I think, like, the best thing to do is just listen. And then the other side is ask me about her, talk about her, and I find that, I find that it doesn't happen so much. And I've kind of been in situations where, I'm not trying to shoehorn her into a situation or anything, but there might be something happen that I'm like, Angela and I did that, and this is what happened, and a chance to kind of like have a conversation about her and things like that, and people just kind of go, oh, cool, and then that's it, but like, yeah, like I'm happy to talk about her, like we're 90 episodes in of talking about her, like, and I love talking about her, and that's really, really helpful. It keeps her memory alive, and we talk about her a lot at home, because especially for Taylor, who's nearly 11, that's how she gets to remember Angela. So I'm not scared of talking about her, and yeah, I might get upset, but that's okay. Like, I'd rather that than just nobody talk about her. So yeah, like those would be the two things. Just listen and allow us to talk about her, or you talk about her. Like, that's even better, because it means that actually it's not just me holding on to her memory all the time. There's someone else was thinking about her too. Yeah.
There's theories, ideas, around like continuing bonds theory and remembering practices. And this is what Aron's talking about. Yeah. And, that people maybe are anxious, or, they're a bit awkward and they're not quite sure. They don't want to mess up or make a mistake. They're tentative, but you and a lot of people want to talk about your person, and they want to know, maybe you can still find things, or, a grieving person can still find out new things about them by other people sharing memories, which add to who the person is. Yeah.
Do you think it's the elephant in the room, and maybe we're a bit scared to say, like you said, something, I don't want to make you cry.
Yeah.
I don't want to upset you.
And that could be the discomfort around that we have, like, culturally around, emotions and sadness, and that being with sadness, or being alongside somebody who is grieving, and that you don't really have to say too much.
And I think, and because, and this has kind of happened to me, especially in the last few months, is as that kind of happens, I stop talking about her, because then it becomes, I don't want to make other people uncomfortable. And so then I stop talking about her. And, as I said before, like, but that's how I deal with things, right? Is talking about her and talking about things in general. And then, but because the kind of table kind of turns, and you're like, well, I feel that I don't want to make you feel awkward, so I'm not going to talk about her, because, so let's just not say anything. And that's, that's kind of the worst thing, but it's like, you're just going to get into this kind of standoff where you don't want me to feel awkward and I don't want you to feel awkward, so let's just not say anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's just be awkward.
Yeah.
And I imagine, like you said, you're into the year twos. Is there part of your head that's going, well, like, they're going to think of me as not moving on, or I'm not moving right because I'm still talking about her. But I would imagine 40 years from now, you're still going to want to be talking about Angela, because she was so significant for you and for a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like that self-doubt starts creeping in, right? Where you're like, am I doing this wrong? Am I meant to just have this year period where I get kind of grace, and then everyone's like, okay, mate, like, you need to get over this now, like, yeah, but you're right. Like, if I'm not, if I am here in 40 years and I'm not thinking about it, I'll be really upset. But that's, you just want to talk about them.
Yeah. Bring her with you.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Bring her with you. And we talk a little bit about this moving on. Aron, you've said to me before, you think of it more as moving forward.
Yeah, I don't know why, but moving on, I just don't like the term. Like, it's like, for me, moving on kind of feels like, here's this one point in my life, and that has Angela in it, and I'm moving on from that now. And because I think maybe it comes from like relationships and stuff, right? I'm going to move on from my ex. I'm going to leave that in the past, and that's the last thing that I want to do is leave her in the past. Like I said, I want to take her with me, and so I just use moving forward. And I've said to you before, I had my mentality around this at the moment is she's not here physically, like I don't have her physically, but emotionally, she's still here. We didn't break up. The relationship didn't end or anything like that. We didn't get to choose what happened. So yeah, she's emotionally, she's still here. She's still a part of our everyday.
I'm thinking as well, you're going through this grieving process. You're working through it, questioning everything. Is this normal? Is this not? But you've got kids as well who are going through it. And I know in a previous episode we talked with Catherine, our creative arts therapist, who supported Taylor a little bit. I'm just wondering, Aron, how do you manage admin, grieving, kids grieving, and supporting them through it, and also keeping Angela as a presence?
Like, to be honest, I don't. When it came to the kids, like, we kind of touched on this, like you said, with Catherine. I don't. It's hard to tell. They're at ages. They're at different developmental ages where they're kind of all over the show anyway, and so it was quite hard to tell. If I'm honest, especially in that kind of 6-month period, I don't think I supported them very well at all. I think it was very much the other way around, where they very much supported me. I would kind of take myself away to the bedroom, and I think we've talked about this before, and Taylor would be at the door waiting for me. At the funeral, she was the one rubbing my back and and stuff like that. So yeah, that was a hard one. But in terms of like, she's all like, so we're always just able to talk about her. There's never, there's never a time where like, no, we don't talk about that. And and I understand that obviously some people won't want to do that, but in our house, she's very much, she's very much a part. There's photos of her everywhere. Her ashes are in a nice basket and stuff in the lounge, so that she's not hidden away or anything like that. So I talked about Taylor and I in our little routine that we say goodnight to her every night and stuff like that. So she's very, very much a part of what we do. And every time there's if it's Mother's Day or it's birthdays and stuff like that, like initially, like they were really, really hard, obviously emotionally, but I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to kind of celebrate them in a certain way, but it was quite hard to do when she's not here, because we have lots of little traditions, but that involved her being here. And so now it was like, again, our new normal is we still want to celebrate those things, but how do we do that because she's not here? But we found little ways. We do things that we know that she would like, we and the kids are involved in those things and stuff like that. And so yeah.
I think as well, like in terms of supporting the kids, you and it maybe that those first 6 months you're saying felt pretty raw, pretty rough, but you had people around as well to support you, like your dad would pick her up and take Tater cheerleading, and so just the recognition that maybe if you weren't able to be there so much, you had things in place that she'd go stay with aunties and Angela's friends, and have days out and things like that with other people. So sharing takes a village.
That's what you've 100%
there as well.
100%, and and without those people, like I said, like Angela's dad, picks Taylor up in the morning and takes her to school and picks her up after school and stuff like that. Like that just makes my life so much easier, and like you say, and then Angela's friends coming and taking Taylor to do mum things, and when Taylor does cheerleading, and I don't know the first thing about putting makeup on or doing high ponytails or anything like that. So there is that where people would be like, well, we can do that, and it's really and so it's really cool.
So maybe ways we can help as well is how can we help you with looking after the family and taking some of that burden off you while you focus on what you need.
And I think that's just a continuation of the practical stuff that we talked about while she was sick. The practical stuff still carries on. Is just continue to do those things.
Amy, I know you said towards the beginning that you support not only our families but the patients that come into our care as well. And Aron, I'm not sure if Angela had counselling support.
No, we didn't. Kind of time didn't really allow for it. Yeah.
How does that look when you are supporting the people that are under our care?
So it can either be they can come in to where we are, or we can go to their home. They might want to come along to a patient group where they're meeting people that may be going through similar things as them. So sometimes that connection and again validation of their experiences emotionally and what they're thinking. Sometimes they just talk about medication. I bet that can be, just all those other practical bits and pieces as well. But I suppose, there's lots of things that go on for someone as they get a diagnosis or their body starts to change. That they're grieving the loss of what they've been able to do, or their identity changing, and just processing what they're experiencing can be really useful to do that, to talk to someone who sometimes, it'll be with loved ones. And again, we really encourage that, which often people won't need, patients won't, people won't need counselling because they do that with their loved ones, their family. Though in the same way that all people grieve differently, because it's a grief, right, that people are experiencing as they're ill and becoming unwell, or that it can be helpful to talk to someone who's objective, to really unload that with somebody else who can contain and hold it and be there with them. Because some people talk about not wanting to burden.
Yeah.
That can be a theme for people. But I would often, if it's, I'd never push anyone in any direction, but, suggest or invite, would it be useful to talk to your partner, husband, child about what you're experiencing? And, I can be there if you want to do that, or, so I think it's always about what works best for the person and thinking about the family as a system and a dynamic, and we're outside of that. But how can we support
and to link in as well?
Yeah.
And you're right, that grief can it is grief for the person with the diagnosis as well, right?
Hugely.
So not only are you supporting the person, but the family around as well. We're all going through these changes.
And at different paces and hits them in different ways and times and yeah.
So what got you into this line of work? Because I can't imagine it's always easy.
Yeah, I think I struggle to answer that question, because it's felt like work I've always wanted to do. There's some kind of knowing, or I'm drawn to it, that this is such special work, that someone at such a point in their lives, whether that be someone who's grieving or a patient who's at the end of their life, that they're opening up, that they're allowing somebody into that space. It's a sacred space. It's a precious space. So I treat it with reverence. It's a hugely special job to have. So,
because talking about death and dying is taboo quite a bit in a lot of cultures, we then maybe think we're a little bit odd because we're interested in it. And it's not that we're interested in death.
You're not sitting there going, oh man, someone dies today, that'd be really good.
Yeah, or in a macabre way, but it's something that's, we know it's going to happen to all of us, yet we don't talk about it. And so I think that also feeds into the awkwardness around knowing what to do or having processes that can support us, and when I say we, I mean, I'm talking from, Pākehā, Western, person from Aotearoa, but yes, there's lots of places and people that do have processes that can be really holding and supportive. So yeah, it's.
But we talked about it when Angela was, planning her funeral, and that was, people were like, oh, what do you mean? So there was that whole, there's kind of this period where it's like, we all know this is happening, but we shouldn't talk about it, and, and we should all just keep our heads down and our mouths shut, and we'll just get on with it. We all know that it's coming because, it happens to all of us, but we're not going to talk about it. And that's like...
And what would happen if we did? How would that make things different? Change that for the person or the family involved to be able to have those conversations, and for people to be able to ask, about your person and all.
Do you think by not having those conversations that can impact our grief as well?
I think so. Yeah, I'd like, again, maybe it depends on the person, right? Like I'm a talker. Angela isn't a talker, so she didn't spend lots of time talking about how she was feeling and how she was, because it's pretty, I would imagine it's pretty daunting knowing that, that this is the end. Like that terrifies me, right? But she, and I said this when we talked to Celia, like she was the bravest one, right? And she let us express our emotions, and she just, she had her little moments, and they were little quiet moments, and we would be lying there, and she would have a little cry, and I would ask her what was what was wrong, and there was times where she said, I'm sad because I'm just going to go to sleep and you guys are going to be left here, and she got upset about the things that she was going to miss out on and things like that, but those moments were kind of few and far between. But that's just who Angela is. Whereas I would be like, oh, I'm scared out of my mind, and I would voice that stuff pretty strongly, I think.
He's like he does.
Yeah.
That whole there's no right or wrong way, does that impact grief?
Maybe not.
Yeah, sure. it's just doing what feels the right thing for you. But I suppose being open, and that there's invitations or spaces where people can, and that they know that they can, if they want to.
And I think and I was just going to say that the exact same thing. I think, like, if you're someone that is going through what we've been through, and this is really rich of me to say because I've not done this at all, and I'm very good at this, and not, do as I say, not as I do, but like there literally is no right or wrong way. Like, if you want to do something, just do it, or if you don't want to do something, don't do it, like that's okay. Because nobody else, it's your journey, just like it was Angela's journey, and how she dealt with it was how she dealt with it. Is it the way I would have dealt with it? Probably not, but I don't know, because I wasn't in that situation. I've not been in her situation. Maybe I would deal with it like that. But and then I guess my journey now is my journey, and it's taken a long time for me to even, like, Amy's probably sitting here going, well, we could have saved so much time if you just said that in the beginning. But, like, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you do want to do it, do it. Nothing is stupid. Nothing is, you're not dumb for doing something. And if I'm still crying because a song comes on the radio in 3 years' time, like, that's okay, and I'm okay with that. And like, I think also, like, that's, to me, it's a bit of, like, I don't know, it kind of now might sound a bit sadist, but like being upset about it sometimes makes me feel a bit better, you and I have talked about the roller coaster, right? And I sometimes get to a point where I know that I need to have a really, really big cry, but I don't want to get on the roller coaster. And we call it the roller coaster because you're standing in the queue watching everybody get to go on the roller coaster, and it's really terrifying while you're on it. But then you get off and you go, oh, okay, well, actually, we've done that now. We don't, we don't have to do it again. But if we do, we know what to expect. But that's, it kind of just, it is what it is. And like, no one can tell you what to do or how to do it. They can, if, and I guess unless they've been through it, that would be the other side. But even then, your journey is different to their journey. So, yeah.
It's a great internal voice.
I knew that was coming.
Sounding good.
Sounds like you've been supported pretty well.
Yeah, look, and and I know that you're sitting right next to me, and and I'm not just saying this because you're here, but I have, like, I wouldn't, I wouldn't have been able to do this, and when I first met Amy, and in that first few months after, we couldn't really have conversations because I couldn't hold it together. Which was okay. Amy wasn't like, for God's sakes, can you just stop crying for 2 minutes? So like that's a big part of, why I'm here, and I owe you everything, and I'm not even overstating that, and I know you're not going to take that at all, but you should.
Having the spaces, having the holding, where you can be and do and express whatever it is that needs to come out.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
And finally, Aron, I think we talked in an earlier episode about the trip that you and Angela and the family had planned when she first got diagnosed.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand you guys as a family went and did that trip earlier this year.
Yeah, so we had the cruise the cruise that wasn't, and so the next option was because Angela's main aim was to get to the South Island. She'd never been to the South Island, so we're like, great, we're going to go to the South Island 5 days. This is what we're going to do. Unfortunately, because of the time frame, she didn't get to do that either. So, I was like, well, we have to do it for her. She's not here to do it, but we're going to do it. And so I was very, very lucky that I had a very good friend of mine, his wife, organised the whole trip for us with an itinerary, and because I'm terrible at that stuff, we would have probably not even ended up in the South Island, or we would have ended up. But she planned the whole thing, accommodation, everything. So it was fantastic. And me and the 4 kids went to Queenstown, we went to Te Anau, we did all the touristy things and stuff like that, which was amazing. But there was also this, this kind of sadness to it too, right? Because she's not there, and that kind of, during the day was okay, we're doing activities, and you'd be like, she would love this, but it was like, I almost was like a glorified tour guide, and I had to round up 4 kids by myself, and they're all kind of doing their own thing and stuff like that, and I didn't have her there to, at the end of the night be like, oh, that was cool, and that was stressful, and, just that little debrief, because the kids would just kind of disappear off to their rooms like they do, and then you're like, okay, I'm on my own. I'm on my own again, and she should be here, and she would love it. But look, it was it was amazing, and we got to do it. We got to do it through the generosity of our friends and things like that. So it was really great, and hopefully memories that the kids will remember forever. But it was cool.
It sounds bittersweet.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, it's just we just never got the chance to get her there. Yeah,
I really love the way you've talked about how you keep, the small things that you do to keep Angela with you, the chocolate bar in the fridge, the ritual that you and Taylor have to say good night to her every night, and that concept that you're moving forward, but you're moving forward with Angela. And I think acknowledging that I can't imagine it's ever going to be easy, but that in time it's something that gets a bit easier, knowing you've still got her legacy and her very much alongside with you.
Yeah, and like I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I write to her every night, and I told her that I was going to do that, when she was here. I said, I'm going to write to you, and sometimes it's just about stuff that we've done during the day, or something that the kids are doing, or whatever. Sometimes it's just about how I feel, and and especially in that first 6 months, I started writing the night of the funeral, and I've written to her every day since then, and I think it helps, I'd hate for anyone to read them. They'd be like, this is the ramblings of a crazy person. But and some days it's really good stuff, and and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'll write to her and say, I'm thinking about doing this, or stuff like that, and I'll write it down, and I'll say, I need your help. I need you to, and I'll wake up in the morning, I'll be like, that's what needs to happen, or I actually know that's not a good idea, and I'm like, oh, cool, that's great. So they're just, and I think I've got no kind of reason to stop. I think it makes me feel a little better, and I get to kind of debrief the day with her. So
it kind of helps. When you say it helps, you think it helps, it's like to stay connected with. Yeah, and it sounds like still making decisions with her and those, and debriefing and things that you would normally do.
Yeah. And I mean, and that was our, we didn't make decisions without each other, and so, and that's been a big adjustment as well. But, so writing that stuff down has been really, really helpful. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Amy, for joining us today. That brings us to the end of this episode and our season of Angela's Journey. Aron, you've spoke a few times in the episode with our special guests and the amount of support that you've had from people and you wanting to almost give them that feeling of gratitude.
Yeah.
And I think that this is where I would like to do that back to you, because I can't imagine that going through this podcast journey with us has been an easy one. On one sense, you've been able to talk about Angela, and it's been absolutely amazing hearing about her and hearing about your journey. But on the other hand, you've relived this in a sense, and I don't think I can understate just how helpful this podcast is going to be. And I hope that it does, provide a bit of support, reassurance for anybody else that's going through it. And so I think from us to you, Aron, we want to give you our greatest thank you. I have nothing. It's the giving.
It's frustrating, right?
It is something to give to you. But thank you again.
No. But guys, honestly, it's been an absolute privilege. You've allowed me to talk about Angela, and hopefully, Esther Seal, we're able to help some people. But we obviously could not do this without you guys. So thank you very much.
I will leave us with this tribute to Angela. I hope that this podcast goes some way in just upholding her legacy as an incredible individual, and helps to keep some of her memory alive. Thank you all to the listeners and the viewers for joining us.